and welcome to Tech Explorer. I hope you are doing well. So, are you looking for a place where you can start learning Python from the basics as a beginner? Do you want to get up and running with Python but don't know where to start from? If so, then this tutorial is for you. This tutorial focuses on the essentials you need to know to start programming with Python. And I will be there for guiding you step by step in a very simple and easy way from the basic to the advanced level. If you have any query, do let me know. I will be glad to help you out. But before that, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe so that you can get the complete tutorial on Python that is obviously becoming the popular language of today, and many more tutorials on the new and emerging technologies. So, let's start. Let's have a quick look at what we are going to learn in this session. So we are going to start from the basics. We are going to get an insight about the Python language. Then you will see why you should use this language. Then we are going to check out the installation steps. And then we are going to go for our first Python program. We will see how to write comments in Python. We are going to see the various Python variables. And finally, we are going to see the block indentation. So let's have a short preview. So Python is a high-level, fully interpreted, interactive, object-oriented and general-purpose programming language. So it was created in 1989 by Guido van Rossum and was released later in 1991. Python is a cross-platform programming language and can run on multiple platforms like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. It is the fastest growing programming language. You can use Python for desktop applications including GUI applications, CLI tools, and even games. So Python helps to perform mathematical and scientific analysis of data. So you can build web and internet applications. You can also do computer systems administration and automate the task and much more things. So let's see why you should use Python language. So Python has a bunch of features that make it attractive as your first programming language. It's free. Python is available free of charge even for commercial purposes. It's open source, so anyone can contribute to Python development. It's accessible. People of all ages, from school children to retirees, they have learned Python, and so can you. Python is versatile. Python can help you solve problems in many fields, including scripting, data science, web development, GUI development, and many more. Python is powerful. You can code small scripts to automate the repetitive task, and you can also create the complex and large-scale enterprise solutions with Python. It is interpreted, it's portable and quicker to experiment with than the compiled languages. It's multi-paradigm. It lets you write code in different styles, including object-oriented, imperative, and functional style. It's dynamically typed. It checks the variable types at runtime, so you don't need to declare them explicitly. And finally, it's strongly typed. It won't let the unsafe operations or incompatible types go unnoticed. So by now, you should have a better idea of why Python is so popular and why you should consider learning to program with it. Python works on Linux, Mac, Windows, and several other platforms. It comes pre-installed on Mac operating system and most of the Linux distributions. So if you want to update, then you probably need to download and install the latest version. You also have the choice of using different Python versions for different projects. There are two major versions of Python that are currently in active use. First, Python 3, that is the current version and is under the active development. And second is Python 2, that is the legacy version and will receive only security updates until 2020. No new features will be implemented. Many projects still use Python 2, although migrating to Python 3 is getting easier. Let's verify if Python is installed in your system. So for that, simply open the terminal window and type Python to find out if it is already installed and which version is installed. Now, how to download the Python? You go to the official website of Python, that is www.python.org. The most up-to-date and current source code, binaries, documentations, news, etc. is available on the official website of Python. You can download the Python documentation from www.python.org/doc. The documentation is available in HTML, PDF, and PostScript formats. So let's check the installation steps. So first of all, let's see how to install Python on Unix or Linux machine. Open a web browser and go to www.python.org/downloads. Then follow the link to the download zip source code that is available for Unix or Linux. You download those and extract the files. So if you want to customize some options, then only edit your module or setup file. Then open the terminal and run the configure script, that is /configure. Type the command make, then type the command make install. This will install Python at a standard location, that is user local bin, and its libraries at user local libpython xx, where xx is the version of your Python. Now let's see how to install Python on Windows machine. So open a web browser and go to www.python.org/downloads. So search for your desired version of Python and select a link to download either the Windows x86-64 executable installer or Windows x86 executable installer. So if your Windows installation is a 32-bit system, you need the Windows x86 executable installer. And if your Windows is a 64-bit version, then you need to download the Windows x86-64 executable installer. There is nothing to worry about if you have installed the wrong version. You can simply uninstall that version and install another version. Then run the Python installer once it's get downloaded. Make sure you select the install launcher for all the users and add the Python version to the path checkboxes. So add path will place the interpreter in the execution path. Now select the install now option, that is the recommended installation option. The next dialog will prompt you to select whether to disable the path length limit. So choosing this option will allow Python to bypass the 260 character max path limit. Effectively, it will enable the Python to use the long path names. The disable path length limit option will not affect any other system settings. So turning it on will resolve potential name length issues that may arise with Python projects developed in Linux. Then finally check whether the installation was successful by simply typing python-v in the command prompt. The output should display your installed version of Python. Now let's check out how to install Python on Macintosh. So you open the web browser and go to www.python.org/download/Mac. You select the latest version for download. You go to your download folder and then double click the installer. So installation wizard will open up. Then simply go through all the steps for successful installation by clicking next. So after you have successfully downloaded Python and installed it, now it's time to download a code editor where you can write your code. So I will recommend you PyCharm IDE because it has some additional features that makes it really easy to write the code. So you can download PyCharm from www.jetbrains.com PyCharm, and you have to download the community edition of PyCharm and install it because it's free. And now when we are over with all the installation steps and ready to move ahead, it's time for us to write our first Python program. So let's create a very simple program called Hello World. We open our code editor, that is your PyCharm IDE. You click on the create a new project, then give a name to your project, that is Hello World, in the pop-up window in the location text box. So that is by default named Untitled. Now below that, expand the project interpreter section and make sure that your base interpreter is the same version of the Python that you have downloaded. You will get the name of your project in the left-hand side of your screen under the project section. Right-click on your project name, click on New, click Python file, and then give any name to your Python file. For example, app.py. py is a file extension of the Python file. Now, here you can write your first Python program. Simply type print and a hello world string inside the parenthesis. And when you run this file, you'll get the following output, that is hello world, which you have given inside the print. Congratulations, you just wrote your first program in Python. Now let's see how to give comments in Python. So comments are pieces of text that live in your code but are ignored by the Python interpreter as it executes the code. Comments can be used to explain your Python code, they make the code more readable, and they can also be used to prevent the execution when testing the code. Now let's see how to create a comment. So comments, they start with a hash and Python interpreter will ignore them. Comments can be placed at the end of the line also, and interpreter will ignore the rest of the line. So this is a way you give a single line comment. You start a comment with a hash, and while execution, the interpreter will ignore all the statements. Now for a multi-line comment, Python does not really have a syntax for multi-line comments. To add a multi-line comment, you could insert a hash for each line, or not quite as intended, you can use a multi-line string. So since Python will ignore the string literals that are not assigned to a variable, so you can add a multi-line string and a triple quotes inside your code and place your comment inside it. Simple. As long as a string is not assigned to a variable, Python will read the code, but then it will ignore it and you have made a multi-line comment. Now let's see how to create variables and assign values. So a variable is a named location used to store data in the memory. It's helpful to think of variables as a container that holds the data that can be changed later in the program. I will explain the different types of variables in my next video. So, the declaration happens automatically when you assign a value to a variable. Python variables do not need any explicit declaration to reserve the memory space. You use the equal sign, which is used to assign the values to the variables. Left hand side has the variable name and the right hand side has the value. So assigning a value to a variable itself, it declares and initializes the variables with that value. You should use a naming scheme that makes your variables intuitive and readable. The variable name should provide some indication as to what the values assigned to it are. Sometimes programmers use short variables like X, Y. They are perfectly suitable names in the context of maths or algebra and so on. In other contexts, you should avoid single character names and use something more descriptive. So that way the other developers can make an educated guess of what variables are holding. So let's see some examples. So this is a way you assign an integer value to a variable. So this is an example where you're assigning a floating point value to your variable. This is an example of assigning string to your variable. This is also an example of assigning string to a variable. Then you are assigning a Boolean value and then finally an empty value. Now let's see the block indentation. So Python provides no braces to indicate the blocks of code for class and function definitions or flow control. It uses indentation to define the control and the loop constructs. Python uses the colon symbol and indentation for showing where the blocks of codes begin and they end. So let's see in this example. This is a function definition. Just look at the colon. Now a equal to 2 and return a, these are the two statements which are within the function block. Now the print function, as you can see by the indentation, print is outside the function block. A second example, now print a, this statement belongs to the if block, and print b, it belongs to the else block. So if you like this video, to like and subscribe my channel. I'm going to bring a complete set of tutorials on Python especially for you, so that you can master yourself in Python from basic to advanced level. Every tutorial video will come with a very simple explanation so that you can enjoy the full course and can clearly understand each and every concept. If you have any doubt or want any video on any specific topic, do let me know through the commenting below. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.